Hey there everyone, and welcome back to Afrodo Reviews. And on this channel, I help you decide, is that book worth reading over second breakfast or not? This is really a book review. So, I decided I would try to go ahead and do another tag video. It's been a very long time since I've managed it. I don't think I've really gotten any tag videos out since I've started my June job, which kind of fair. I kind of have to record. I'm on a very tight editing schedule, if you haven't noticed sometimes. I do most of my recording the day before it goes out. So I'm basically recording and then editing and then putting it up there within like a day, which is fun, but you know, whatever. So anyways, but you might also be wondering why it took me so long to do this. Well,
Curse you, Bale!
Haven't got a clue, I just slipped my mind. So anyways, this is the Midyear Freakout Challenge. A little bit late, but you know what? I'm doing it nonetheless. Now, I did this last year, and I want to do it this year. I did find something online that was gonna, you know, be my little guide as I read through this. It will be the 2024 Midyear Freakout book tag, as on the alliteraryescape.com chat. The alliteraryescape.com blog, I'm guessing. So anyways, you're going to see a fair amount of books on here that I haven't quite talking about on my channel, because I've been trying to keep up reading in the background while also not just spouting everything. One of the things I've done a lot of reading of this year that I haven't talked about is comics. I've been really keeping up with those. But there have been a couple books here and there that I've talked about otherwise. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get into the booktube tag. So, question number 1. The best book I've read so far in 2024. Now, this one's a little tough. On one hand, I do kind of want to say Crank, because that is one of the best books I've read this year. I think it's more of a good book based on my own personal experiences, though, and something I can kind of connect to in a more indirect way. I think as a book, it's not the best. I've mentioned before that I don't really enjoy poetry in the same vein as I do regular books. So I think if there was a more direct story, it probably would definitely fit here. But as it stands at the moment, not necessarily. So when it comes to the best book I read this year, if I had to go by comics, it would definitely be All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison. I got this book off Kindle Unlimited and I read through it, and I was really surprised. I really enjoyed this read because I just really like the optimistic tone that this comic has, especially in an age where the evil Superman is just so common in media nowadays that it's almost losing meaning. It's actually more surprising to see a Superman who holds up his old values of being, you know, everything we should aspire to be. But at the same, so I really enjoyed that. If I had to choose the best literary thing I've read all year so far, it is definitely All-Star Superman, because I especially love at that one point where Lex Luthor gets all of Superman's powers, and instead of going mad with power, he just pauses and realizes, how could anyone be evil when you can hear the voice and heartbeat of everyone else on the world? And I just really love that bit. There are a few points here and there that I thought, well, a little, but you know what? Of all the books I've read this year, it's definitely one of the best. As opposed, for books itself, now that one's a little tougher. If I had to get one, I would probably say Obi-Wan by John Jackson Miller. That's the only book I've read this year where I've gone out of my way to read some more past past the limit I normally set for myself. Normally every day I'll be like, okay, I need to read this many chapters, and I'll be able to do that fairly fine. But once I get past those certain amount of chapters, my mind starts wandering a lot easier and stuff, so that's typically why I have that limit. But with Obi-Wan, it was just like Death Star last year. When I was reading it, I just kept finding reasons to go back to Obi-Wan and reading it some more. So as a you know, more standard book, it was definitely the best book I've read of 2024. Obi-Wan. So let's go on to question 2. The best sequel I've read so far in 2024. This one's a little difficult. I don't think I've read very many sequels yet that I can actually speak of. Of the sequels I can think of, there's Dragons of the Spring Dawning, Dark Forces Rising. I don't think Ahsoka counts as a sequel, even though it's technically a sequel to the animated Clone Wars series. So I think of all of those ones that I thought, Dragons of the Spring Dawning would probably be the best sequel I've read. I won't say it's the best book of the three I mentioned. I think I would still just kind of give that to Dark Forces Rising. But as a sequel, I felt this was the best because it was the one that elevated the book that came before it, making it better in hindsight, as well as being just an overall improvement on the subject material. So yeah, that's why I would choose Dragon of the Spring Dawning for the best sequel I read in 2024. Question number 3. New releases I haven't read yet but want to. I am terrible at keeping up with new releases, so yeah. Question number 4. My most anticipated release for the second half of the year. God damn it. Like I've said before, it's really hard to talk about this because I'm not great at keeping up with current booktube news, or current booktube, just current book news in general. So oftentimes by the time I actually get into reading a book or getting excited about a book, it tends to be more of a case of, oh hey, cool, that's coming out. I think if I had to, if I had to choose, let's see, hold on, maybe that's coming out this year. Let me look it up. Okay, simply put, I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I don't know. So let's go ahead and just move on. My biggest disappointment of 2024, or question number 5. What's my biggest disappointment of 2024? See, this one is hard to tell. I would honestly say Manhunt was the biggest disappointment I had all year, mostly because I went into that expecting something a lot better than what it was. But like I mentioned in it itself, it does do a lot of things right. It's so bogged down with just so bogged down with the author's politics and just who the author is in general, to be completely honest with you. But and I wish I could say I was one of those people that could completely separate an author from their work, but I really can't. Especially when I know the horrible things they've said and done, and then I see a book that's basically reaffirming all those beliefs. But it would be hard to say that Manhunt is the biggest disappointment, for sure. I think maybe if I had to choose, though, it might be The Night and Its Moon, though. Of the various books I was reading, I think I had the highest hopes for that one being great. I loved the cover art. The story was taking place in a fantasy setting, and it looked very interesting and sounded very interesting. Except when I started reading it and I realized, oh no, it's a Witcher fanfiction. But so yeah, if I had to choose, it would probably be A Night and Its Moon. I'm gonna go ahead and apologize, by the way, in here. The June Pride Month TBR was a bunch of books that sucked, at least in my opinion, obviously. So I'm gonna try to release a couple things talking about LGBT works that I really enjoyed later on in the month, past the Pride Month, obviously, because it's halfway through July by the time this video is gonna come out. So yeah, in any case, expect some videos talking about LGBT books that I really did like this year, that I read. So, with that, moving on. Question number 6. What was my biggest surprise of this year? Ooh, that one's gonna be tough. Obviously, All-Star Superman is a good surprise, but it was a well-loved comic, so saying it was a surprise that it was so good feels cheating. I guess if I did have to say my biggest surprise this year, I guess I would have to go with Crank or Identity. Because, like I said, with the heavy nature of the books, when I opened it and I saw those free verse poetry, I was like, oh no. But the stories it told and the themes it discussed and the things it wanted to start a conversation on, it did it so well that I ended up really liking the books and just kind of going through them really fast. They were like 600-page books, and I could read them in 3 or 4 days. And I guess I could blame that up to the fact that it's poetry, So each page is maybe a quarter of the length of what would typically be a page like this. But I would still argue that's probably the biggest surprise of this year, about how much I enjoyed it compared to how much I would have expected to enjoy it. Question number 7, or I'm pretty sure 7. My favorite new author, either debut or new to me. I honestly don't know. I don't know, honestly. I want to say anything I've read has made me say, okay, I gotta read more of this author. If anything, I would have to choose Ellen Hopkins again, simply because that is the one person I've read where I'm like, okay, I'm excited to read her other books. I think if I had to maybe step away from her, I don't know. I want to say there's any book I read this year that's like, this is so good, I want to see what else this author wrote. You know? So I guess for now, nothing, except for maybe Ellen Hopkins and Crank. Because so far they're the only one I've read where I'm like, I need to read more of this person. Newest fictional crush. Question 8. So I mentioned my last Midyear Freakout that I don't really get fictional crushes all that often. I don't know. I really don't have a fictional crush, I guess. There's no character I read that stood out so well for me that I'm like, if this person was real, I'd totally want to date them. You know? They should ask, who's my newest fictional enemy? Because I would have dozens of answers for this. I would have so many answers about characters I just want to come off the page just so I can deck them. Because there were just so many characters that I read in some bad books that I'm just like, oh my god, I want to strangle you. Question number 9, I think. My newest favorite character. Again, another tough one. I don't think there's any one character that stood out amazingly to me this year. Obviously, Obi-Wan doesn't count because I've known this character. Neither does Ahsoka. That doesn't count either. Benji from Hell Followed With Us is a pretty interesting character. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't remember much about Benji. There wasn't too much about his personality to really latch onto. Yeah, I guess I really don't have a new favorite character as of this moment. Go ahead and check in with me on my, end of the year booktube tag, assuming I managed to get that done. And I'll let you know if anything jumps out. But newest favorite character, I don't have any. Like I said, all the characters I can think of off the top of my head, I'm characters I've known about. So, oh, you know what? Hold on, before we go on, there is actually a character I think about, and I'm not sure I've talked about this yet, but there is a video coming out on it soon, hopefully. It would be Baki Hamna from Baki the Grappler. I don't know. There's something I love about this character. I'll go more into detail about it when I actually talk about reading this series a little bit. But there's just... Okay, so Baki as just a series in itself is so wild, but it was so funny reading the first 10 chapters of this series and watching as Baki is like, there's like this huge martial arts dramatic movie going on around him, and he's over here just trying to live a normal life. But it's not because he's not interested in fighting. He loves fighting. He just wants to live a normal life on top of that. And when we do see him finally snap for those moments and join in the fighting, he shows how skilled he is. But he's also not perfectly skilled, as he's one of the few people who he doesn't seem to want to take a life without good reason. At least as of the point I'm reading. So consider that my answer. My newest favorite character of this year is Baki Hamna from the new Grappler Baki. A book that made me cry. If it count... Okay. I don't know if this is going to count, because technically it's made me cry before, and it is a manga series, but holy god, the One Piece chapters that have been released this year, I don't normally get teary-eyed when it comes to the manga. The anime can pull on my heartstrings because it adds the music and you can hear the pain in characters' voices. But oh my god, the backstory with Kuma and Jewelry Bonnie in One Piece is just so. It was so I cried just reading some of those chapters, and it was like, oh, even that unfinished chapter when Kuma, in Kuma's backstory. I'm not gonna spoil because I can't do that to people. You guys have to read that. I mean, it's 1,000 chapters in, so if you're not already reading it, you got a way to go. But oh my God, those were so sad. It broke my heart reading those chapters. It was like, I just want them to be happy, man. I've never wanted a fictional character to just earn his happy life more than I've ever seen it with Kuma. Oh, and the scene where Bonnie finally sees Nika. In any case, a book that made me happy. Well, obviously this one is going to be All-Star Superman, because that is the one book that I would say is the most positive of the books I've read this year. And I really like the message it took. It doesn't fall into the whole Superman's an evil man. It just shows what a good, kind-hearted Superman is. And it also, it's one of those books that it made me happy to read. Although if that's cheating by choosing the same book again, I guess if I had to choose a book that made me happy aside from that, I guess it would be Godzilla versus the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. But that made me happy more in a nostalgic sense. I won't sing praises about it as a literary masterpiece, but just seeing the Power Rangers and Godzilla duking it out, along with, the aliens, and it's a lot of old Godzilla lore. It uses the original Godzilla, not the newer Godzilla, the MonsterVerse Godzilla. So it's pretty interesting to see all that old, crazy lore. The most beautiful book I've bought this year. Okay, hold on. I got this one. I'll be right back, guys. The most beautiful book I bought this year is Heavenbreaker by Sarah Wolf. Now, if I hadn't gotten this book, I definitely would have said Moonfall by James Rowland. But this book, it's just beautiful. Look, first of all, it's got my favorite color scheme, blue and gold. So obviously that puts it a huge margin above. But this is one of those special edition books. So it's beautiful. Taking off the dust cover, you got this amazing artwork right here on the front. Opening it up, it's inside. The pages on the side have these amazing art pieces on it. This is an easy win for Heavenbreaker. Can't wait to see if this book lives up to the beauty of it. Question, I don't know anymore. Books I need to read by the end of the year. Now this one is definitely a lot more difficult. I would argue that every book I own is a book I need to read by the end of the year. But that's not feasibly possible. But there are a lot of books I do want to read by the end of the year. Most of them are stuff on my shelf. I will say I need to get picked back up on all my banned books challenged. Sold, 13 Reasons Why, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I meant to do that one during June, but I did not expect all the June books to not like them as much as I did. So that ended up kind of swallowing the time I would have used to read Perks of Being a Wallflower. But though if I had to choose any, those would be the ones I need to finish by the end of the year. And I'm working on it, I promise, guys. But my favorite book to movie adaptation. I haven't read any this year, actually. Yeah, I really haven't. I don't think I've read a single book to movie adaptation. No, that was last year. Yeah, there's not a single book to movie adaptation that I've read this year. So, I guess not available for this answer. And that's it for the Midyear Freakout Challenge. I guess I try to answer this to the best of my abilities. I apologize that I kind of left a lot of these questions as in/A, but I did answer them as to my ability, and I am trying to do more of these tags, trying to be more proactive in the booktube community again. I'll be honest with you, it's probably not going to last very long. When we get to August, my work schedule I'll be surprised if I do manage to even record videos during that time. So that's going to be one of those. I'm seriously trying to create a backlog fast. Not August, October. October. So ignore what I just said. October is the year that's gonna. It's the month that's gonna be like the entire time for me. So with that being said, just remember, with every book comes an adventure, and every adventure is worth having, even the bad ones. I'll see you later, everyone.